welcome back to Beyond the Swipe podcast with your host, Bernardo Mejia. Today, we have a special guest by the name of Mario Mejia.
What's up, guys?
All right, Mario is a first generation Hispanic American, Ironman athlete, and the owner of M3 Handyman Services and Vista Claim Services in Richmond, Virginia. This episode is about grit, redemption, and rebuilding. Not just yourself, but also a business that earns trust one transaction at a time. Mario, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Bernardo, for having me.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So, funny story, we have the same last name.
Yep.
No way related. So, first Mejia that I come across. But yeah, tell me a little bit about your origin. Tell me, where you come from, where you grew up.
Okay. So I come from a hometown, or my hometown is Spotsylvania, Virginia. It's I always say it's where the Civil War happened, just to give people like a reference, an idea of like what kind of area I grew up in. We were some of the very first Latinos in that area, and I didn't grow up with any other Latinos. There was actually one other Mexican family in my community, but we weren't like so close growing up, so it really felt like we were the only like brown people out there. And yeah, my dad's Mexican from Oaxaca, and my mom is from Guatemala. And yeah, first generation here, first one to like complete my like primary education up until like high school, first one to get a 4-year college degree. And I try to take a lot of pride in what I do, being that my family sacrificed so much to even come into this country. So.
Yeah, that's a very common value, I think, across the Latino community. Did you feel like growing up, did you feel like there was pressure, to kind of perform and overachieve?
I wouldn't, maybe just because I was like the only Latino in my school. I always felt like I had to, make a good name for the other Latinos out there. And it inspired me in many ways growing up as a Latino to like do my best, especially when my parents took me back to Guatemala and Mexico. And, we'd be driving through and we would see kids working the streets with no shoes, trying to sell you chicle. And my parents would remind me at like 6, 7, 8 years old, they'd be like, that could be you, but you're lucky to have an education. And doing that year and year again kind of made me understand how privileged I was to even be here in the States and to make the most out of it. And, always wanted to do my best with that said.
And be grateful, right?
Yeah, gratitude goes a long way.
Absolutely. So tell me what, you went to high school, right, in Spotsylvania, and you experienced homelessness.
I did, yeah, that kind of happened later in my life. It was during the recession of 2008, and right at that time is when my parents also decided to get a divorce, and simultaneously, my dad's business got wiped out from underneath his feet. Basically, the property owner of the shop basically gave him like 3 or 6 months notice, something like that, to remove all of his like 100, maybe 200 cars off the lot. And with the divorce being so costly and taking a lot of his time, and then also that recession happening and people weren't really buying cars, it hit us really, really hard. And we had a house. I don't want to make it sound like we were like on the streets, but we did have a house. Basically, what happened was my mom won rights to that house, but my father won custody of me and my brother. And what my dad didn't share with like the judge while going through this custody battle is that he didn't really have a place to take us in at. So we ended up like couch surfing a lot and sleeping in hotels and making drives all the way to Maryland just to sleep on my cousin and aunt's couch, and then drive back to Virginia at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning so I could go to school. And did that for like 2.5 years or so.
Wow.
Before I finally started getting some kind of stability back in my life, moving in with my mom again.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what kind of business did your dad have?
So he had a mechanic shop and car dealership, and being the only Latino in the area, he was very recognized between like Maryland and West Virginia and Virginia. So he had a pretty successful car business up until that recession.
2008. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a hard year
Mm-hmm.
for sure. I remember my parents. This was before my dad started his plumbing company,
Okay.
but he was working for EMC, which is a big plumbing company.
Mm-hmm.
But just right after that was a sweet spot to actually start his business, and he started it in like 2010, so 2 years after. But I felt it too. We felt it as well. Kind of like like you said, like the payments of your vehicles and all that. We kind of felt it in the grocery store too. But which actually brings me to my next point, right? Which is the trades, right?
Yeah.
So we talked about trades and plumbing, HVAC, handyman services,
Mm-hmm.
kind of what you do now.
Yeah.
And how that business model can actually be really recession proof.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, when people are thinking about who is somebody who's like economic that I can call on to help me, that isn't going to charge me top dollar, they automatically think of like handyman. They're not thinking of contractor. Contractor, I think, in a lot of people's minds, come off as like a pretty expensive person to call on. But handyman, it just like you said, it's almost recession proof because everybody wants that economic option where they know it's a single person, not a big company to call on.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And even, operating the business side of it, it's like, someone's always going to need some sort of repair work, or a burst pipe. The HVAC's gone out in the summer. I experienced that. It's not fun at all.
No.
So it really is kind of like a solid business model to pursue if you're a young entrepreneur.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And I tapped into this business just because of the demand in it in itself. I actually didn't go into it thinking, oh, I want to be a handyman. I basically had a time in my life where I thought I wanted to get back into cars like my dad. I was like, all right, this is what my dad did. I must be good at this too. And I found myself not enjoying cars at all, but eventually I had no income coming in, and I saw somebody post on Instagram, I'm willing to, pay somebody to cut my grass. And going from cutting grass, like painting doors, to fixing doors, like there's a demand there. So it's always going to be there. AI can't take this away from us.
You can't take it away, ChatGPT.
Yeah, no way. And I'm very grateful for everything that I've learned and the trade of being a handyman. There's a lot of benefits.
Right, absolutely. And that brings me, what I wanted to ask you too is, what if you could pinpoint a turning point, right, from going from that custody battle and the divorce with your parents or in high school,
Yeah,
to then starting your own business.
mm-hmm.
What would you say the turning point was
in my life?
Yeah,
Man, it kind of I would say dealing with the homelessness and simultaneously losing my father to cancer and watching him die while we were still experiencing poverty. That kind of like had it had a significant impact on me in my life and the way I look at life. And realizing that I have to kind of grab life by the horns and steer it into my own direction. It took him at like 54 years old, and I, started thinking to myself, man, if he only made it to 54, like, I'm his son. What if I only make it to 54? And
yeah,
yeah.
I feel you. And I mean, I can imagine, that was a significant point in your life where you had to, push through, and mentally, what do you tell yourself, right, to like keep going forward, to keep moving forward?
Yeah. One thing that like heavily sits on my mind is that whether you realize it or not, your parents, your grandparents, your great grandparents, it's generations of sacrifice for you to be who you are today, where you are today. and to not let those efforts die in vain. And that's something I didn't come to realize until I was like in my later 20s. I had actually like watching my dad die in front of me, and going through all this trauma. I had actually hit a very, very low point in my life where I dabbled with alcoholism and had been to jail a few times and ended up like losing my license and going to drug and alcohol rehab. And after hitting that rock bottom, and then remembering all of the times, all of the conversations I had with my dad, there was one moment that really stuck out with me, and I had promised him, months before he passed away. I was like, Dad, what do you want me to do with my life? And he said, I don't have an answer for you other than for you to be the best man you can be. Like, just always do your best. And after sitting in jail and going through the drug and alcohol rehab and losing my license, losing my social life and everything, I just I laid back on that thought exactly, and wanted to fulfill that promise and realized at 25 years old, it's time for me to wake up and really start taking control of this life, or else it's going to continue to pass on whether I want to be active in it or not.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, man, that's some really great reflection there.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sure your dad is proud of the man that you've become.
Appreciate that.
So let's talk a little bit about Ironman.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did your Ironman training shape how you approach business and leadership?
Okay.
Because for the audience, Ironman. Tell us a little bit about what Ironman is, right?
So Ironman is a triathlon between the three disciplines of swimming, cycling, running, and it's a single day race, often recognized as the world's most difficult single day race of 140.6 miles. And you only have, depending on the race, it's like 16 to 17 hours to complete, or else you're eliminated from the race. So yeah, it's definitely not for the weak, very demanding. And I would say that it translates a whole lot into life. And what was your question again?
So 140 miles is what it is in one day.
In one day.
140 miles in one day.
Yes.
That's crazy.
It is.
But like, okay, so for the entrepreneurs and business owners watching, how does pushing through, and setting a goal of wanting to accomplish that feat translate into, pursuing something in business and leadership?
I would say, holding on to that long-term vision. Obviously, Ironman is not a sprint. It's not something you're going to get done in an hour or even a few hours. Right. It's like something that has to constantly sit on the front of your mind. And even when times are completely isolating and there's no one around you in the race, it translates a lot into the business world, right? It's like, I'm staying up really late. No one's here to support me, motivate me. Like, it's just me and myself, and like I'm doing this, and you have to constantly remind yourself, why am I doing this? And I would say a lot of the Ironman grit mentality has translated into my business life with this mindset of, I don't care if anyone's around me to support me. I know why I'm doing it, and I'm not here for the applause, for the likes, because ultimately I'm in it for the long haul, and I'm here to see it through. And I don't care if it's going to take me 15 hours or if I'm going to, break the record. I'm here to complete it no matter how long it takes. So.
Right. Yeah. And then one of the things is also the amount of prepping that you have to do and endure before actually the event happens. Right.
Oh yeah.
So like in business, how I can associate it is, like motivation versus discipline. It's like, okay, well, motivation will get me going. Like motivation's enough to kind of like get you off of the couch, and kind of go to the gym or start the business or, pursue anything short term, right? But discipline, in Ironman especially, discipline is, like you said, 20 to 30 hours of training.
Yeah.
Right. Preparing for that event. So, you're training whether you feel like it or you don't feel like it. So I always say that motivation will get you going, but discipline will keep you going.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So I think if we apply that mindset into our businesses, we can really focus on um, doing the hard things even when we don't feel like it,
Yeah.
in pursuit of the ultimate vision, right? The long term vision, like you were alluding to.
Oh yeah. I think a lot of people, especially in this generation, and something that like social media and exposure to the internet has kind of wired people into having instant gratification. So if you can learn to control that, rewire it, and see it for the long haul, like you're not going to get results in the first week that you try to like with any kind of venture, whether it's social media, business, whatever it is that you do. You're not going to see a major success in the first week that you do it. It's not in the first month that you do it. It's not even in the first year. It's an ongoing process, and it's very lonely. Not a lot of people are going to understand you. People are going to be like, why are you doing this again? And it shouldn't matter to anybody else. It's what you see in it for yourself, right?
Right, absolutely. And so, in talking about, kind of that, when in a business, when you're first starting out, right, you're in business for yourself,
Yeah.
and it might feel, intimidating at very first. You might not have it all figured out. You might not have, a 10-page business plan to start off with. But ultimately, all you have is, a vision and some grit, right?
Yeah.
But tell me a little more like technical business. Like, were you getting like when you started your handyman business, were you taking cash only, or were you also integrating other payment options for your customers?
Yeah, so I actually, prior to having the handyman business, like I had said, I thought I wanted to be a car mechanic and get into cars, flipping them like my dad did. So I already had like an LLC. This was like my fifth LLC I've ever set up, and actually the only LLC that I've ever had take off the ground, where I went through, opened up a bank account, got a credit card, and every other one was like, I just know I need an LLC and I'll start there, and I never knew what else to do with that. But with this one, I had quit my corporate job after 4 years, after telling myself I was tired of working for the big man, and for the big man to dictate my life and my vacation time and whatnot. And started working with cars. And again, I didn't really enjoy working with cars, so I didn't have any work coming in. I was taking anything and everything for work, and eventually, like I found myself cutting grass, found myself like painting doors, replacing handles, replacing air filters, like little silly tasks like that. And I just knew that there's a process to everything, and I'm like, okay, I need to open up a bank account. So I had that bank account set up and open. That way the money was getting deposited. However, I wasn't really taking anything out because like I was too scared to do something wrong.
Yeah.
And that was like after like half a year, I had somebody reach out to me with like accounting services, and they kind of like walked me through it. They're like, okay, you're gonna need payroll, you're gonna need this, and just kind of like reassured me. So I got really lucky with that like random call, that sales call. I'm like, yeah, this is exactly what I need, sure. And only then I started like paying myself, and it was a very slow roll to it, but I would call it like just like the snowball effect, where it's one thing, and over time it grows and grows and becomes something much bigger. And yeah, now I have like everything set up, like payroll, workers comp, insurance for $2 million, like, and it had you told me at the very beginning of me starting this LLC that I would have all this, I would have been so intimidated, because it sounds like all these big components, and really it's like it's not anymore.
It kind of all just flows. You kind of tumble into a lot of stuff, and
Yeah.
you kind of choose what to pay attention to and not. Like, I mean, if it wasn't for a sales call, right? If it wasn't for that sales call and that guy calling you to save money on credit card fees, you'd still be paying thousands of dollars on credit card fees.
Oh, absolutely.
But no, but yeah. So like, what I asked was like, in the beginning of your business, were you just taking cash from customers, Or did you like automatically know, okay, I gotta get set with a processor so I can take credit cards and debit cards?
Yeah. With I was just taking like checks, and Venmo and cash, and yeah, that was my entire approach for the first like year or so, until I started getting those commercial clients that were like, okay, we need invoices and we need you to send us how to like pay you and stuff like that. And that's when I really started tapping into like more the payment systems. But prior to that, it was just like cash, checks, and whatnot. And
Yeah. And most people start off that way, especially if you're a service business, any service business, if you're a mechanic, HVAC, plumber, handyman, construction, painter. So a lot of times they'll just start with, like the Zelle, the Cash App, the Venmo. And what you'll find is as you grow, and kind of like you alluded to, once you start taking on bigger contracts or bigger clients,
mhm.
they kind of want a formal invoice, itemized invoice, right? And the thing that Venmo and Zelle and Cash App and these third party payment apps can't do is actually protect from fraud. So, being in my father's plumbing business for such a long time, I've seen kind of the issues with checks, check fraud. They get stolen um, from the mail. People literally like walk into an office building and steal checks and then do fraud. And then I've also seen people paying with Zelle and then accidentally sending it to the wrong number. Oh, your number ends with 21, not 22. Okay, I sent it to the wrong person. Well, I can't get my money back now. So when scaling a business and taking it kind of to the next level, that's what I always try and get like, my service friends to kind of see is that okay, yeah, I get paid instantly with Cash App and Venmo, but really having a credit card gateway system so that you can number one invoice your clients, and then number two expand your stream of revenue with credit and debit cards. It's going to ultimately make it easier for your clients too,
Oh yeah.
right? Because if you're a contractor, you're a painter, and you're offering $2,000 services, a lot of clients are going to want to put that on a credit card, right? And they get points and all that for it. So, it's key that the earlier you do it, the better off you'll be in the long run. Is what I tell new entrepreneurs getting started.
Yeah, I agree. It's a lot of people, they try to eliminate all the expenses. Like they're like, oh, it's a processing fee. I don't want them to deduct that from me. But really, what I've learned from this business, this being my first successful business, is that you got to pay to play.
Mm.
Like you want things to be easier. That way you can just move on to the next task, the next client. Pay to play. Like if you don't have a system in place, you're working on saving pennies when really you should be chasing the thousands, right?
Yeah, it could be costing you thousands. I like
Yes.
that one. I like
Yeah.
that. Might be my new slogan, Tristan. He said, "You're chasing pennies when you could be losing thousands." I like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Um. Okay. Well, let's talk. Let's talk a little bit about Let's stick to the mindset. Um. Why is vulnerability important in your story? Why is it important for you to share?
I think got this tattoo. It says "Be the Light," and something I got during my triathlon training for Ironman, and I just wanted to share the darkest moments in my life and kind of be a beacon for those that are suffering silently, that are like too ashamed to admit that they've been going through their own tribulations. And with that said, I didn't want anybody to think that just because I was accomplishing this feat of Ironman or pursuing my own business, that I was too good of a person. Like, that's not who I am. And actually, even on my social media, I have a picture of like my jail shot, and that's just to like ground myself. Like, I'm nobody great. I'm nobody significant. I'm just somebody that tries. And you too, if you hit your rock bottom and if you just start trying, it is possible to come out on top. And that is why I believe in being like transparent and having humility. It's very grounding, and also very you're able to self-reflect a whole lot more if you're just honest with yourself in this way. And I think if you want to achieve anything great in this life, you kind of have to be able to look in the mirror and sit there and look at yourself and be like, I know I'm somebody who has messed up hundreds, if not thousands of times. But what is it about today that is going to change that all around? And that's why I always share my story about, poverty and alcoholism and jail and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of where you see a shift in mindset from survival to growth, right?
Mhm.
Because those survival times, and dealing with those challenges, right? Once you get through them, then that's growth, and you get up to a much better place to where you can share with people, right, your experience and share wisdom,
Yeah.
right? So how I tie that into business is, many business owners operate in survival mode, especially when it comes to finance and fees. um, so I know you mentioned earlier, what does, we can just touch base a little bit more on it. What does pay to play mean to you in business in general?
It means you can't take any shortcuts, and that means even in the system and processes that you do, because ultimately if you are taking shortcuts on yourself, you're also taking shortcuts on your client. So it's just better if you invest into the tools and resources, because that will be felt in every aspect of your business, even to the clients. The clients will feel that you're more at ease taking payments. They'll feel more at ease knowing that you're working with the quality tools to get their project done.
Right.
If you're penny pinching in every sense of your life, even when it comes down to your business, that means that they're able to see that you're working with like the cheap Home Depot. I mean, not the Home Depot, the cheap Walmart tools.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, I don't know about this guy. This guy, I know those tools, and those are the really cheap ones. I don't know if he's actually giving me the quality. And when you have those quality features in your business that make everything streamlined and less stressful, then your clients will feel that.
Yeah, it comes down to customer convenience, right? And their experience, because ultimately it ties into your brand too.
Yeah.
How your clients feel when, they buy a product or service from you is a direct reflection of your brand, right? And what I always like to, talk about when I'm speaking with a potential merchant is that, like you said, penny pinching can ultimately, it might save you a couple of bucks here and there, but if you don't invest in the right systems and the right processes, ultimately it could bite you in the long run.
Yep.
And so one example that I see, a lot of business owners locally do is that, okay, they know that they have to pay the processing fee, right, for every swipe.
Mm-hmm.
And what they'll do is if they're invoicing, they'll add like a little extra item on the invoice, and they'll be like, okay, this is a credit card fee, and this is a convenience fee,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and then they're increasing their invoice by 3 to 4%.
Yeah.
Now the problem with that is, and a lot of people don't know, is that Visa and MasterCard require certain guidelines to be followed when it comes to that processing fee.
Mm.
So yes, you can offset it, you can pass it on to your customer, but it's got to be written in clear language somewhere in your business. So if you operate a truck or a van, it's got to be displayed clearly, and you got to communicate that efficiently before the payment.
Mm.
And if you have a shop or if you have a building, a restaurant, there's got to be a sign somewhere in your restaurant that says, "Hey, all prices are as is, and we do a 4% cash discount if you prefer to pay with cash."
Interesting. I didn't know that.
And the thing is that Visa and MasterCard, if somebody complains about that, they're charging me 4% additional and they didn't tell me about it, they go to Visa and MasterCard, they'll actually penalize you $25,000 per day if you continue to operate the business that way. And they may also blacklist you from using their payment rails.
Mm.
So right off the bat, when I find somebody, I try to educate as much as I possibly can, but ultimately, business owners will do what they think is good in the short term, but in the long term, that's definitely something that I like to educate people on.
Yeah. Oh man, I got some changes to make with my business.
No, and there are compliant ways to do it. So as long as you got to get it set up, with your payment partner, whoever your payment partner is.
Yeah.
If you want to offset the cost of processing cards, there is a legal and compliant way to do it. You get the right equipment, you get a device, and at checkout, you just ask your customers, are you going to pay with card or cash? And if they say, okay, I'm going to pay with card, well, the price is as is. The credit card fee is already included in that price. And you can just give them a heads up. If you prefer to pay with cash, I'll give you a discount. And so that way, at the end of the month, you look at your processing statement and you'll have $0 spent on credit card fees. So that's that.
Yeah.
But anyways, Mario, what do clients misunderstand about your work?
Man, I wish my clients understood how many aspects go into doing any single thing. Like swapping out a vanity, it's not like just put it in place and we're all done, right? Like a vanity, for example, that's a little bit of carpentry.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of being familiar with like framing. It's plumbing. Then there's just so many different aspects of it. Like knowing which caulks are appropriate to use as a sealant and which are adhesive, which are just for cosmetic. And then I have some clients that like they'll preface whenever they come out to me and they're like, hey, I need a quote, very easy job, and automatically there whenever they say, oh, it's very easy, I'm
That's
like,
my favorite.
yeah, like, oh, you clearly have no idea how long this is actually going to take. They're like, oh yeah, I just need you to mount this bike fixture onto the wall. It should take like 5 minutes. I'm like, yeah, okay, like you have no idea the preparation I have to do to make sure that I arrive with the right tools, right? Or cleaning up and
prep work,
setting up the tools, setting my tools away,
damage prevention.
Yeah, right. It's not 5 minutes. And I had to learn that the hard way. Tapping into this line of work was my wife every day as I was leaving home. She'd be like, "Oh, what time are you gonna make it?" I'm like, "Oh, that's a quick job. I'll be home around noon." And then I find myself not coming back until like 5 or 6. And yeah, that's one thing I wish my clients understood. And it's not that they're my one and only client that I have for the week, but then to also make the time and come up with a method of approach for every project for all of like my 30 or 40 clients every week. It's very demanding, and I know I make it look easy, but it does take a lot of it's a mental load to take just to prepare for that.
I mean, client calls you, I got a quick job, and what source? Trust me, bro.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've been in that position too, but, and the other thing is like, okay, well, my price is my price kind of thing.
Yes.
A lot of the times, you kind of have to have a backbone, I think, if you're going to operate a business, of that sort. You got to have a backbone, and you got to understand your own value.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, you don't want to be on the race to the bottom in terms of trying to provide the cheapest price.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of early stage businesses kind of get stuck on, okay, I got to give them the cheapest price so I can, keep the guys working, all right, so I can stay busy. And sometimes that'll work, maybe for 1 or 2 jobs occasionally.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if that's your only strategy, I think it's just kind of, it's a race to the bottom and, it's over.
Oh yeah, I've been very fortunate to keep my business afloat for 4 years, and learning your value is something big that I've had to learn the hard way. When I first started getting into this work, a single story home was only like 800 square feet, but I had painted the entire exterior of that house for $400 after spending almost 5 days painting that thing, and it was one of those moments where I'm like, I had an anxiety attack. I'm realizing at this rate I'm only making like $3 to $4 an hour, and I'm like, why did I leave my corporate job again? And you know, you definitely got to have a backbone being in this business. You'll have some clients that just don't bat an eye, and they're like, understood, and they pay you exactly what you say. And then other clients are like, whoa, seriously? And you're like, yes, I'm serious. And you can't say, oh, I guess I can come down a little bit or something like that, because then it shows that it gives them the idea that they now have control over you, and you don't want that, right? If you're going to be a business leader, you got to be strong and firm, and that comes out of, you know, you might make some mistakes along the way of learning your value, but once you know your value, you stick to that, and you don't bend backwards.
Absolutely. You know, and that's building, you know, ultimately when you get far into it, you kind of create like your little community of clients, and you build trust with them.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's when you get to the point where, you know, you give them a rate, and they'll just be like, okay, Mario, you're my guy. You know, I trust you. Do the work, right? Do the job.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what we all want to aspire to. You know, in my line of business, trust is everything, because, you know, we're dealing with financial transactions. You know, we're dealing with people's personal information, business information. And so when we're handling that data, that sensitive data, we want to make sure that every client feels safe, knowing that, you know, we're their payment partner, and we're going to represent them as best as possible. So creating trust is definitely, I think, ultimately what's going to cement your value as a business owner.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, moving on. What would you say to someone who was in your same shoes when you were rebuilding your life? Mm-hmm. What would you say to someone that is in that position right now?
Let's see. It's a good question. What would I say to somebody who is rebuilding their life from basically the ground up? I would say you have to learn how to trust yourself and not follow the crowd, not do what is like popular to do. Don't do what you think people think of you and what you should be doing based in their eyes. You need to sit there, isolate yourself, really think about what is it that I desire the most in this life, and then, you know, think about whether your ego is involved in that or not. Because if you're doing it for your ego, it's not going to be really fulfilling as you work towards it. So you kind of have to dig deeper, think about what is, like, when you reach a certain age, you know, whether that's like 30, 40, 50 years old, what kind of life do I want that person, my future self, to be living? And then how will I get there? And you don't have to know every step of the way. I will say that I'm a big person of faith, and it comes with learning how to silence your mind, not forcing for things to happen, but rather aligning yourself for things to happen. And if you can do that, you'll figure this life out along the way. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not, you know, again, it's not in a day, a week, a month, a year. It could be a decade before you kind of see it through, maybe even a couple of decades. But what matters the most is that you are thinking in that sense of future and what that person would thank you for if you were doing it right now. And I would say that moments like that, where I have thought that deep, is what brought me out of the hole.
Yeah, you gotta really do some soul searching. You know, if you're going through any challenge in your life, you're dealing with difficult situations in your life, you know, like you said, what do you want to see 50 years from now looking backwards?
Yeah.
Right? And like you said, also with the ego thing, I think in younger entrepreneurs kind of, you know, in their early 20s, kind of trying out, it took me a long time before I actually found kind of like a sweet spot of, you know, pursuing financial success, but also fulfillment, right? Because, I mean, you know, anybody chasing, you know, success and money, like, it'll come and go, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, when you're in the rough spot, like, is this something that you're going to enjoy doing in the tough moments?
Yeah.
Right? And if it's not, then it's okay. Just cut your losses, try something new, and keep your mind open. You know, ultimately, I think if you're only chasing after financial success, you're gonna find yourself burnt out eventually. That's what I think.
Absolutely, I definitely agree with that. A lot of people are out here wanting to pursue what sounds like it's going to make the most money, or clout chasing for the things that they own, but really it will eventually catch up, take a toll on you mentally, if not financially, and then just like you said, during those rough times where because moments of insecurity are inevitable with any entrepreneur. Like there's always going to be a moment where you're like, man, everything's on me. Like, am I even sure of myself anymore? So you really have to be tapped into something that brings you a grand sense of joy and excitement, and it's not just for the money, because when there's going to be times where things shit hits the roof, and what is it that's going to keep you going during those very hard moments? And that's what separates the strong from the weak, and those that are actually full of passion versus those that were just chasing the cloud.
Right. Yeah, that's it. And share with us, Mario, some of your business tools. What do you use to operate your business? Like, what's one tool that makes your day-to-day easier in business?
If I had to do one tool,
like, what's one tool you use?
one physical tool,
or
like one business tool,
like systems, or
system. Okay. I would say my invoicing, because in the past I used to be a guy who would just write things down, and I wouldn't write the details of the job or anything. I'd just be like, all right, this person owes me this much, and very caveman like, and that was my approach. And eventually one day I had a realtor say to me, Mario, you need an invoicing system. And I was like, yeah, I can just go on Microsoft document and write that. But it's so different to have an actual system that is intended to work with you and aid you in different ways, than for you to just be a caveman and try to do it yourself. Like, you got to trust the process, trust the systems. They're there and they're being paid for a reason. And I think if you're out there not working with some systems in place, then you're being a bit of a knucklehead.
So what's the tool? What is it?
It's I started with 1-800 accountant, so that's where I'm at right now. But yeah.
Okay, cool. And what about a physical tool? Your everyday
tool.
Physical tool.
I would say my Mercedes Sprinter van.
Okay.
The thing is, I got the tall one, and have that thing completely decked out in Milwaukee, and it's just so easy. I used to work out of a Super Duty Ford F-350, breaking my back going into the camper shell, bending over, wrestling things and
moving things out of the way.
Oh man, dude, and my back would be hurting before I even start the project. Yeah, and now I have the Sprinter van. I have another 6-7 inches clearance above my head as I walk in, and I can browse and choose my tools, and everything is compartmentalized, and I know where everything is. I don't have to be breaking my back. So that has probably been the best physical investment that into being a handyman.
And that comes down to efficiency.
Yeah.
Right? Because the quicker you can get to your tools, the easier you can get to your tools, the more quicker you can get on the job, finish the job, get paid.
Yes.
Move on to the next one.
Oh yeah.
Right? And so that comes down to the concept of pay to play, right? I mean, a Mercedes, what is it called?
A Sprinter van. Yeah, cargo van.
It might be a little bit of an investment up front, but it's going to be worth it in the long run, because you're improving your efficiency. And payments, what that looks like is, okay, well, what does it mean to pay to play in your payment strategy as a business, right? I mean, it could be, if you're a restaurant or if you're a retail store, it could mean putting up more POS systems at your bar, right? I had to deal with one of those with one of my restaurant clients. they only had one little POS station at a bar, and the bar is like this wide, like, so they have to go from, they have to walk from one side of the bar all the way to the other side of the bar for every transaction. And you're at the nightclub, you're waiting for your drink.
Yeah,
20 minutes.
That's madness. That's so much opportunity being lost, and people don't realize opportunity. Like seconds. Every second does add up.
And business owners a lot of the time will be like, no, I don't want to pay for an extra POS system. I don't want to have to pay my employees to train into the POS system. But I mean, think about it. If you have, two systems in that one bar, when you're super busy, you're going to be taking payments twice as fast, and people are going to be just twice as satisfied coming back.
Oh yeah.
Because ultimately they don't want to waste time at the bar. They want to be out, at the center of the nightclub. But
yeah.
But that's kind of how we can tie in those two. Efficiency.
Yeah, it's growing pains. I feel like a lot of people don't want to go through those growing pains. They think that everything should be very easily profitable, and I mean it might take a little bump in your profit margin for a day or two as you get acclimated to anything, but once you're acclimated, you're working twice as fast, making twice as much money, not even a higher multiplier than that. And it's wish more people understood that as they got into business and stop being so cheap on yourselves.
Yeah, facts. Okay, well, for the final takeaway. So we already reviewed. We already told us a lot of great stuff here, Mario. I think a lot of the audience who will see this will be able to relate to your story and where you were once and where you are now. And if you haven't yet, take this as inspiration. We never know when we might be inspiring, the next $1 million idea and the next generation of young entrepreneurs. Tell us, where can people find you?
Don't have a business cards. I don't have a website. I always like to brag about that because I've gotten everything through word of mouth or my social media. So you can find me on Instagram at Rico Chico, or find me on Facebook. Also on TikTok. I'm not on there as much, but definitely Facebook and Instagram that's my bread and butter. So I welcome you to follow me. I'm constantly posting different types of content, whether it's a bit humorous or educational as to how to, DIY your own projects at home. I'm here to always answer any questions if you have any. Also happy to give any advice to those that are trying to learn how to jumpstart their own entrepreneurial venture. So I'm here for you.
Great stuff, Mario. Thanks a lot for being here. I really enjoyed this episode, and I hope you can come back in the later future.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thank you for having me. It's been awesome, and stay tuned.
If you're a business owner listening to this thinking there's more that I could be doing behind the swipe, this podcast and Mario's story is your wake-up call. Let's make your systems work as hard as you do. Remember that power moves start with smarter payments.